2 years ago next month, the Queen opened Parliament, setting out the government's legislative agenda. Doesn't time fly? Now, you may remember the state opening had reduced ceremonial elements due to, as Parliament's website delicately puts it, the unique circumstances of the general election. And that session is still going on. On Thursday, it became the longest parliamentary session since World War II. Dr. Alice Lilly from the Institute for Government and Professor Vernon Bogdanor from King's College London can explain why this matters. Alice, first of all, why does this matter? This session could go on forever, couldn't it?
There's certainly nothing to stop the government from doing that. It's perfectly within its rights to keep this session going. I think the big question, though, for Parliament is what does keeping this session going actually change? Firstly, does it get us any closer towards breaking the Brexit deadlock in the House of Commons? And secondly, the fundamental reality of this session remains, which is that the government is a minority. Legislating as a minority is difficult enough. Doing so when you have an issue as divisive as Brexit makes it even more complicated. And already in this session, party discipline within the government has broken down even further. So it can keep the session going, but those fundamental problems are still there.
Vernon, it is rather unusual, isn't it? Parliamentary sessions used to last for a year or about that.
It's completely unprecedented, I think. You've got not only the Brexit deadlock, but both parties deeply internally divided. So we've got the very peculiar, indeed unprecedented situation of a government which can't get either its Brexit policy through or any other controversial policies through, but also Parliament won't get rid of it because they decided in a vote in January not to support a motion of no confidence. So you've got a government which is hobbling along without any legislative support in Parliament and without able to achieve anything. And that is a remarkable situation.
Alice, MPs can still legislate, though, can't they? They're very busy at the moment, some days.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, if you look at the quantity of legislation that the government has passed in this session, it's actually very comparable with what you would usually expect from a government. What is different, though, I think, is the content of that legislation. So the government has really chosen to focus a lot of its energies on its Brexit bills. Outside of that, it's not really wanted to do anything very contentious, so that it can really focus its political energy on these divisive issues. What we're seeing now, though, is these sort of non-contentious bills that the government is introducing, so things to do with circus animals, leases in Kew Gardens. They're really now essentially distracting us from the fact that there hasn't been much progress on Brexit and there is still this impasse in the Commons. So yes, the government is legislating, MPs are getting through plenty of things, but when you consider that this is a government in the first session of a new Parliament, outside of Brexit, it's not really passing the kinds of big set-piece legislation we would expect.
Vernon, is there a way out of this deadlock? We're still some way, of course, from the long Parliament of 1640, which I think went on for 20 years.
There are three ways out of the deadlock. Either Parliament passes the deal, which is non-negotiable, or at least the withdrawal agreement part of it is non-negotiable. Either that happens, or it votes no confidence in the government, and we have either another government or a general election, or it decides upon a referendum. They're the three alternatives. They've been there for some time. They were well summed up by Theresa May. Either the deal, or we leave with no deal or no Brexit. And it's up to MPs to make up their mind. And really, they've had a long time to do so because the Irish backstop was agreed in December 2017. If MPs were so strongly opposed to it, why didn't they say that a bit earlier, a little before the Brexit date loomed so large on the horizon? The behaviour of the MPs, it reminds me of a very old Groucho Marx film in which he's chairing a group of academics, and before they can say anything, he said, "I don't care what you say, whatever it is, I'm against it." And that is the attitude of MPs on Brexit, as far as I can see.
So, Alice, and would a new Queen's speech change anything, or is this going to go on forever? How will it end?
The million-dollar question. Certainly, a new Queen's speech would offer the government to perhaps reset some of its priorities, to offer a bit of a shop window as to what its legislation would be.
Still have to get it passed, though, wouldn't it?
It would still have to get it passed. It would face a debate and a vote on the Queen's speech. Historically, that is something that has been treated as a matter of confidence. Under the Fixed Term Parliaments Act, it's a little bit less clear what the formal effect of the government losing a vote on a Queen's speech would be, but politically it would be enormously damaging and it would make it very difficult for them to continue.
Vernon, how will it end for you?
I wish I knew the answer to that question. If I did, I'd be a very rich man. But I think what may be worth pointing out is the rather poignant fact that in her first speech as Prime Minister, Theresa May laid out a large agenda for dealing with the problems of provincial England and those struggling to manage. And hardly any of that agenda will go onto the statute book because Parliament has been deadlocked for so long.